Plans under a new CEO are part of the boost to the stock price. In Los Angeles, I'm David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report. From 8 p.m., American Public Media.
The Alhambra Theater presents West Side Story, a modern-day Romeo and Juliet musical tale about Maria and Tony, two idealistic young people caught between warring street gangs. Opens February 20th. Tickets at alhambrajax.com. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjax.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, D-Day arrives for government employees facing Trump's buyout deadline. We ask an employment lawyer what workers need to know and take your calls and questions. Then, Jacksonville's sexual minority nonprofit gets a new leader. We talk to the new CEO of JASMYN about his plans at a time of mounting challenges. And St. Johns County Sheriff Robert Hardwick is spoiling for a fight for a good cause. We'll tell you about the First Responder fundraiser. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937. Email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or tag us on social media. That's all ahead this hour.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. Amid President Trump's idea to uproot all Palestinians in Gaza while the area is rebuilt, Israel is now telling the military to take steps to relocate Palestinians from the territory that's been destroyed by Israeli bombardments. NPR's Greg Myrie has more on what people in Gaza want.
Palestinians in general and the refugees in particular harbor this deep fear of being displaced ever since the trauma of 1948, which they call the Nakba or the catastrophe. And Trump's comments really struck that chord. It's just hard to see how you'd ever get past such a core emotional issue. We just seen more than 15 months of a devastating war in Gaza, and very few Palestinians left during that time.
NPR's Greg Myrie reporting. Critics go slam Trump's plan, saying it would amount to the forced displacement of people, which is a crime under international law. A large crowd gathered yesterday outside the U.S. Capitol in Washington, protesting Elon Musk's efforts to shut down the U.S. Agency for International Development. NPR's Luke Garrett has more.
Crowds chanted against tech billionaire turned special government employee Elon Musk, who has called USAID a, quote, ball of worms. Musk has worked to dismantle the international aid agency with the support of President Donald Trump. Many at the rally were current USAID or nonprofit workers, but didn't want to give their names publicly, fearing that they'd be targeted by the Trump administration.
This is my career. I've worked in the sector for 7 years, and I'm not telling many people yet, but my first child is due in September. And I want to be able to feed my family.
USAID has announced that nearly all employees are being placed on administrative leave and that overseas personnel are directed to return within 30 days. Luke Garrett, NPR News, Washington.
Nearly 350,000 Venezuelans are losing legal protections, allowing them to remain temporarily in the U.S. under a rule posted today by the Trump administration. NPR's Greg Allen has more.
Large numbers of Venezuelans migrated to Florida in recent decades, fleeing the authoritarian regimes of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro. Ending the program means that in 2 months, hundreds of thousands of them will face possible deportation. The news has sparked an outcry among Venezuelan Americans, many of whom supported Trump for president. Republican county commissioners in Miami-Dade are among those calling on the president to reverse his decision. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said he counts Venezuelan Americans among his supporters, but he's backing Trump.
So I think President Trump is getting the law right. He's going to get control over who is in this country.
DeSantis says he believes the Biden administration abused TPS in a way that encouraged more Venezuelans to come to the U.S. Greg Allen, NPR News, Miami.
This is NPR News.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning, I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. Jacksonville may benefit from more tree cover thanks to an initiative created by City Council President Randy White called the 100 Tree Challenge. City arborist Justin Gerhardt told the council's Neighborhoods Committee this week the goal is to plant 100 trees in each of Jacksonville's 14 council districts, taking into consideration what each district wants.
We're not going to force trees in locations that cause issues. We're going to make sure that the trees are impactful. And our goal is just to make sure that we get out there and show, equitable tree plantings throughout the city.
The time frame for completing the project is uncertain as supply shortages have affected the types of trees planted. Putting in 1,400 trees would cost nearly $3 million. The money would come out of the city's tree fund. Drinking water in Lee County in southwest Florida will no longer have fluoride in it. The county commission, supported by State Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo, voted this week to remove fluoride from the water supply system. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Dental Association, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention all say that water fluoridation is effective and safe and works to prevent tooth decay. Naples and unincorporated areas of Collier County have also voted to remove fluoride, as have Immokalee, Everglades City, and Marco Island. We'll have sunny skies this afternoon in Jacksonville with highs in the lower 80s and light winds.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Eric and Wendy Schmidt through the Schmidt Family Foundation, working toward a healthy, resilient, secure world for all. On the web at theschmidt.org. This is NPR.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, some 2 million workers face a deadline. Should they stay or should they go? We ask a labor lawyer what federal workers need to consider before they reach the fork in the road. Later in the program, we meet the new CEO of JASMYN, and we ask the St. Johns County Sheriff about fighting for a good cause. But first, it's deadline day for government employees to decide whether to leave their jobs for a government buyout or stay and risk layoffs. Here to help us thread through the confusion is Tad Delegal, labor and employment law attorney here in Jacksonville. Welcome, Tad.
Well, thank you, Ann.
We also want to hear from you. Are you one of the 2 million workers who received the fork in the road email? What is your plan? Give us a call at 904-549-2937. Email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. So, Tad, you have been a labor and employment lawyer for more than 3 decades.
That's right.
How unusual is what we're seeing at the federal level?
Yeah, it's very unusual. Federal employees are governed by laws, regulations. This has just been sort of a, slipshod kind of approach to, some kind of severance or benefit to have people resign. And there are a lot of questions right now. There are some lawsuits challenging this whole process. It doesn't appear to comply with a lot of statutory requirements. There's no means, apparently, of enforcing the right, and there's some question as to whether or not it would be enforceable in terms of the benefits that have been promised.
So catch us up, just if you can, on what is it that's happening. We know that last Tuesday, more than 2 million federal workers received this fork in the road email. But since then, this has been expanded from just civilian agencies to include intelligence employees in sensitive, lines of work. Do we know the parameters of kind of who all received this email in its entirety?
I know there are just large swaths of employees who've been sent these emails. There's been very little in terms of detail, though, in terms of what the rights are. And, when you're in the federal government, there's a lot of benefits. Part of the reason that you take a government job is you have retirement benefits, you have other benefits. There's a lot of questions as to how those benefits are impacted by, this plan. And there's question, too, about, whether or not it would actually be paid. The current funding situation is only good until March 16th, and there's a prohibition on providing benefits that are not funded.
Well, let's talk about the offer. I mean, basically, what this email said is, hey, if you want to take this buyout, you have to let us know by February 6th. That's today.
Right.
And you would basically receive pay, be kind of on a leave, essentially, for until September?
Yeah, it's a administrative leave type claim, although it does say also if if there's some critical requirements, you could be brought back or required to work. So there are times in which there are buyouts, that employees are provided with enhanced pension benefits or other types of benefits to leave their employment. But it's part of a documented process, and you know what your rights are. Here, this is very unknown, and it's very scary to a lot of federal employees.
So this is an issue that, you see from a labor law perspective with some legal questions, but also some policy questions in terms of, who might take advantage of this offer. What are the concerns there?
Well, I guess this comes from the perspective of, hey, I stood too long in a DMV line and therefore all government employees are bad. But, and we want to get rid of them. But the reality is the federal workforce is the smallest that it's been in 50 years. We don't have a bloated federal workforce. I mean, that's a myth. And the real concern that I see is this is just not thought out, right? And, we do have places. I mean, nobody who gets VA services is complaining that the lines are too short, There are problems. I mean, the FDA approves, does approvals, and it takes a long time to get approvals. And the companies that are seeking those approvals for drugs and important things will tell you that reducing the workforce is not a good thing. Frankly, this kind of program, if somebody takes it, the people who are going to be willing to take it are probably your best people who could go to the private sector, right? I mean, they say, okay, well, you don't like federal employees anymore. You don't want me. I get it. I can go somewhere else quickly. So you're probably draining some of your talent. And we're talking not just bureaucrats. We're talking doctors. We're talking people, engineers, people who are doing a lot of very necessary things.
Air traffic controllers.
Air traffic controllers. Meteorologists. So, I understand that it's sexy to hate government employees, but we all rely on these people. And I don't see how this is going to, in the long run, it's going to bite us.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we're talking about deadline day for government workers who've been offered a buyout by the Trump administration. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media talking to Tad Delegal. He's a labor and employment law attorney here in Jacksonville. So Tad, when someone has a government job, typically what are the protections that are in place, and what is it about this offer that concerns you that may not follow the typical protection, the way that that's supposed to work?
Yeah, well, when you get into a government job, and you go into the federal civil service or other civil service systems, you do so for a reason. You generally are not going to get paid as much as you would in the private sector, but there are long-term benefits. There are pension benefits. There are other, there's guarantees. There's job guarantees. So one of the concerns here is this offer appears to require you to waive all of those protections. So, for instance, some of the unions that are suing to block it are saying, well, you can't eliminate the right to enforce your protections through the Merit System Protection Board, and then still have some guarantee to get a benefit. You're essentially, no lawyer is going to tell you to sign a piece of paper that says, we're going to give you a benefit, but guess what? You can't enforce our promise to give you a benefit because you're waiving all your rights. And so that's a very troubling way that this is being approached.
This email that went out has been amended a couple of times. There's been some changes, some clarifications. Initially, I think people thought that, this was going to take effect February 6th. Now they're saying people would have to basically stick around until mid-March to ensure a smooth transition. But this amended deal has now includes something that's like a sample contract. They're calling a sample contract to memorialize this deal. And is a sample contract legally binding? I mean, for people who are thinking about it, and we do know that, I mean, it sounds like tens of thousands of people have, in fact, said, let the government know that they do want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, which is a very small portion. I think that's less than 1%. I think it's 40,000 folks who've accepted it. So I don't know if the sample contract is enforceable. Generally, you could try to make that argument that it is. A lot of times you don't know what the effect is going to be until you try it in court, right? So you could claim that it was part of the offer, that. But if it is labeled a sample contract, there may be some problems in enforcing it, and I haven't seen the specific language on the sample. So I would be concerned about, your rights in terms of enforcement if it was me.
Yeah. We have a call from Teresa in Ponte Vedra. Good morning, Teresa. Go ahead.
Good morning. Would like to ask if anyone is concerned for the retired federal service people and whether or not you think that they could try and take away some of the money or reduce the income or anything like that.
Thanks, Teresa. Ted, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think so that there's any plans to do that. And I think there would be some, there's certainly some enforcement mechanisms, some statutory provisions, and, persons who are retired generally are able to assert the right to their retirement benefits under a contract theory. They've made a contract with the government. I'm going to work for a certain amount of time, and in exchange, you're going to pay me. And that's the way the courts view it. That's an enforceable contract, and you have a right to enforce those benefits. So I don't see that any efforts to try to do away with retirement benefits. But who knows? It's a weird world right now.
Yeah. We also have a call from Sally in Springfield. Good morning, Sally. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. I do have a question, but I just first wanted to express my opposition to this practice, as well as all the other choices that are being made by the president and his workers, causing all of America turmoil and trauma. But my question is, where is all this extra money coming from? It's apparently not in our budget before, so it seems like an extra expense.
That's a good question, Sally. Ted, I mean, it would just putting all of these people out of work ultimately make up the expense of the severance package? I
don't know. And that's a great question, because that's one of the problems that's being explored in the courts right now. And there are supposed to be some hearings this morning about, an injunction. But, for instance, the current continuing resolution only goes to March 16th.
That's the funding mechanism.
The funding mechanism. This is not funded. This benefit is not funded.
Well, we should say it's not funded by Congress, but this Congress has shown a willingness to be very compliant with the dictates or the requests of this administration. So presumably, if they are asked to assign funding, they would assign that funding.
That's unsure. I mean, you've got some actual conservatives in Congress still on the Republican side who are concerned about the budget, and they may not go along with this. So I don't know. And there's only like a 3-vote margin, and I'm not sure that the Democrats would support it.
Sally noted, turmoil, and she used the word trauma. And I just want to ask you about, there's a little bit of a mindset right now, concern of a lot of people in government, whether or not they've been offered this or whether or not they're going to take it, about losing their jobs anyway. And we know that entire departments have been frozen, their budgets, workers placed on leave, perhaps pending, the closure of their agency altogether. First of all, does that give people added incentive to take this buyout offer?
Yeah, that's a good argument. Some people may want to risk it, thinking, hey, I may not have a job anyway soon. They may turn a lot of the current civil service employees into political appointees, and which is a concern. I think the bigger concern that I have is this. We've had a system of civil service in this country for close to 130 years. You know, this was something that, you know, Teddy Roosevelt came up with. So that, you know, you no longer have political appointees making political decisions. Instead, you're trying to have people who are there from one administration to the next, trying to do good for the American people. And that's their, you know, that's what they're supposed to be doing. And they're supposed to do it in a nonpartisan way. But if you get rid of that and you say, you know, I just want to have whatever hacks, you know, happen to support me in the position, we're getting rid of the competence, we're getting rid of the duties, and I think we're really harming ourselves in the future.
We have a message from John on Facebook. He says 8-month severance is very generous. Most commercial companies pay 30 to 90 days. Usually you only see 6 to 9 months severance for those who work at a company for 15 or more years. It's a really good deal. The only reason this is unusual is because it is the government.
Well, I suppose, yeah. I mean, there are all kinds of severances, and I represent a lot of employees and a lot of different severance deals, and some are a lot more lucrative than this in private sector. So there's no real standard. But the real issue to me is, you know, what is the policy? Is this thought out? What is going to happen after you get rid of a certain number of employees? And are these agencies going to be able to function?
Yeah. We've got a call from Bill in Lakewood. Good morning, Bill. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me on. I want to make a comment kind of in two areas. First of all is who we're talking about. There's this huge misimpression of what civil service is about, and that people are sponging off the government. I have people that I love very much in my family that have been long-term, long-career civil servants. They work outrageous hours. They put themselves oftentimes at personal risk. These are kind of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. They're patriots. They're people that are doing their job for the United States, for the people. And what is outrageous to me is the disrespect they're being treated with. Just the blatant, I don't know, insulting and even cruel comments that are being made about federal employees. You know, this is a threat, this offer. This isn't just a generous offer. This is, take this offer or you may be fired, out of the blue. I also think it's unconstitutional. It's a blatant violation of separations of power. And the main question that I have is, with the huge federal workforce we have in Jacksonville, Duval County, where are our representatives? Who is out there defending this big voter bloc? I haven't heard any of our local representatives make any statements whatsoever about defending their constituents, defending the Constitution, defending the separation of powers. And I call on them to do that, and I mean right now. Thank you.
Good comments, Bill. Thanks so much. Do we know what the footprint of federal workers is here in this area? I mean, obviously there's a big military presence. We know that some people at NAS-JAX have gotten this email.
There's a lot of federal employees, civilian employees of the Navy, for instance. There are a lot of them. The Corps of Engineers has a big presence here. They have a big office. A lot of very good employees who are doing a lot of important work. Other federal agencies as well. I mean, this could very well have, if enough people are let go, it could have an economic impact. Could it, have some other impact on the private sector if you have, flood the market with people looking for jobs, very competent people looking for jobs.
So there are jobs that, as we mentioned, are somewhat more sensitive than other jobs. One of the clarifications that went out since that initial email was, there may be some conflicts that we would have to examine before you could move into a private sector job. Talk about what what that might mean if someone is moving into the private sector, even if they're not in an intelligence position, but perhaps they're in a regulatory position.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real, I mean, somebody said the other day that, hey, one of his big concerns was the revolving door back and forth with these regulatory agencies. If you're regulating private industry one day, are you going to go to that private industry employer the next? And frankly, the way this thing, I mean, this is really a slipshod approach to reducing the size of federal government. But the very people who would be tempted by this are the folks who can move over to the private sector. And I don't think there's been any thought given to what that effect is going to be. Should all of a sudden the drug manufacturers are going to be employing all these highly qualified people who were regulating them yesterday. Other regulatory agencies as well. So there are a lot of questions, and this is not Twitter. This is very important stuff. There's no thought being put into this.
Well, obviously, the Twitter comparison being that, obviously this is an initiative that's spearheaded by Elon Musk, and he sent a similar email to his employees at Twitter titled Fork in the Road. A lot of people would say, hey, Twitter's still functioning. All of these people, either took this offer, they left, they were pressured to leave, and he downsized a significant amount of his work staff. But you look at Twitter, and it's clear that it's not what it was. It is not the same as it was. And I wonder what you think our government would look like if, as many people as were offered were to take this buyout.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'll tell you this. I mean, USAID apparently is being demolished. And, it's not like those, I mean, what is going to happen next is China is going to move in to start providing those same services, because part of the reason we provide those kinds of services is, is a diplomatic reason, is to prevent people from hating us. So, what's going to happen next when you reduce the funding for services that provide medical care or provide, meteorological services or assess the quality of our food and our medicines? I don't know, but nobody else does who's coming up with these plans. They don't know either, and they haven't bothered to care. And that's one of the problems. I was listening to somebody recently talking about the American process, where we don't leave everything to political decisions, because some of these decisions are complex enough that you want to have a variety of opinion in the rooms to think about the implications of the actions you're going to take. And nobody bothered to do that. Nobody bothered to say, well, maybe we all shouldn't offer this buyout to these folks who are regulating these other folks. Maybe we shouldn't offer this buyout to the folks who are taking care of our veterans. Maybe we shouldn't offer it to, other federal employees who are providing strategic, critical services that are going to harm our country and our citizens if they're gone. But instead, it was just, hey, I've got a wild idea, let me fly with it. And I don't think any legitimate company would take that approach. And I am very concerned for the future of our country based on this.
I want to take a call from David in the Beaches. Good morning, David. Go ahead.
Hi, how you doing? Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about who we're talking about, these individuals. We're calling them civil servants. Some things I want to bring up. Veterans, the U.S. government employs more veterans than any other organization in our country. Many civil servants are veterans. My grandfather fought in World War II. He spent the rest of his life as a GMAT, working civil servant. These people, these civil servants, they're not out chasing corporate profits. They are people within our community that are doing good. Softball coaches, Boy Scout leaders, Girl Scout leaders. They have the time and the love of country to be able to support our communities. I just want everybody to take a deep breath and realize we start referring to civil servants. of who these people are. They're our veterans. They're the people that care about our communities. And, to go after them, it makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Thanks, David. Appreciate the comment. I also want to take a call from Taylor in downtown. Good morning, Taylor. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call, and thank you for bringing attention to this topic. I just wanted to make a comment because it was mentioned about, some of the federal workers and the economy in Jacksonville. As this return to work order, this return to 5 days a week order is now in place, there has really been no discussion from the White House about how expensive this is actually going to be. And they're trying to downsize the workforce in the name of reducing wasteful spending. But what they don't realize is that we are currently in an economy that is set up for partial remote work, and ordering a return to work for people who started working remotely or on a hybrid schedule means that you're going to have to purchase desks, you're going to have to purchase chairs, computer equipment, you're going to have to find leased office space because that stuff was not there. We have more workers than we have space and equipment. And so I just think that needs to be brought up, that we're actually going to be spending a lot of money getting everybody returned to office. Thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. Ted, he raises a good point insofar as this is just one prong of a multi-prong approach to try to reduce the size of the federal government. One is an order that work from home employees return to the office full time, which is obviously going to discourage some people from sticking around. They may take the buyout as well. And then there's also the effort to try to change the categorization of federal employees that would remove them from the civil service protection and allow them to be categorized as basically political appointees that could be fired at will.
Yeah, there are a lot of actions being taken. Most of them are based on just sort of myth and prejudice. They're not really thought out. I can tell you my personal experience. I have a law partner who she works almost entirely remotely because she's much more efficient that way, and so I know that there are going to be people who are going to be harmed by this, and the government's going to be harmed by some of these actions. Fundamentally, I think the role of the non-political civil service is up for grabs, and that should concern us, because if the goal is to politicize the government and politicize the agencies that protect us, that's really, really scary. That's scary because, suddenly if you don't fall in line, you may be harmed by people who are in the IRS or in other federal agencies. And that's not something that any of us signed up for.
Well, it's interesting. You noted earlier the concerns about a revolving door where people who are in a regulatory position could be moving to the private sector. But I think it's worth noting that the reverse is happening at the top levels of government, where a lot of people from regulated industries are being appointed to the agencies that regulate them, and perhaps with an eye to downsizing or changing the way that those enforcement agencies operate.
Yeah, I mean, that's very concerning. These enforcement agencies are, Congress created them, and they're created for certain purposes. If you destroy that purpose by putting people in them who do not agree with the mission of the agency, then we're not protected.
We're almost out of time, but Eugene, we're going to take one last call here. If you could just briefly go ahead, Eugene. Thank you.
Okay, briefly. Good morning, all. My question is, I would be interested if you have a poll of people that voted for this current administration that's being affected by it, and if they took any time at all to listen to or read Project 2025. And I take your comments off there.
I think Eugene's point being that much of this was promised during the campaign for President Trump. He basically said these were things that he wanted to do, right. And perhaps there shouldn't be much surprise.
Yeah, and it's bewildering to me. But yeah, I mean, eventually, though, when the next crisis happens, when the next plane crash happens, when the next problem with federal government happens, hopefully people will say, and not buy the excuse that, hey, some mythical DEI issue caused it, right? Like the last excuse that was presented without evidence. And instead, look at some of the decisions, because this is going to bite us. And there's no two ways about this. We're going to get rid of the expertise. We're going to get rid of the people who know what they're doing.
Just to wrap up here, this is the deadline day. What are you advising people to do at this point?
I'm not advising any current clients on this. I'm part of a lawyer community who've all taken the position that this is not wise to fall in line or to accept this because of the efforts and the questions that still remain. And that's, I think, the consensus amongst the legal community that accepting this is not wise.
All right. Well, Tad Delegal, it's a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it.
All right. Up next, how the new CEO of to fill and a daunting political landscape to navigate. Here to talk about it is the new Chief Executive Officer of JASMYN, the Jacksonville Area Sexual Minority Youth Network. Francisco Castro, welcome.
Thank you.
So you are taking over from Cindy Watson, who founded JASMYN. She has been a feature and a fixture in this community, very well respected and beloved leader of JASMYN. What do you think you will carry on from the way that she ran JASMYN, and what might be different?
It's a great question. So I've met Cindy, and she's amazing, and she's a hero of mine now after meeting her. And I think that the things that will be the same are leading with compassion, leading with strength, leading with a sense of community, and leading with a sense of the importance of being there for our young people, providing the safe spaces and the services that they need so that they can grow up and be the people that they were meant to be.
Yeah. This is Florida. It is a challenging time for the gay community. What are the special challenges that face young people who identify as LGBTQIA+?
There's a lot. So there's the removal of safe spaces in schools. There's the removal of access to gender-affirming healthcare. There's the lessening of support for parents who want to provide the best care that they can for their child and be the best parent that they can be. The states have entered into the medical room and have limited access to gender-affirming and healthcare.
And so JASMYN has always operated as a safe space for those kids. For people, though, who are not familiar with the work of JASMYN, tell us a little bit about kind of what support is offered, what's available.
Great. Yeah. So most critical is the safe space. So what we provide on campus and in other places throughout the city is a place where our young people can come and be with people and be with people who are like them, find their community, and find people that are supportive, adults, role models. That's actually one of the things that's really important to me is I want to be a role model for our young people. Being a proud gay man of color who is HIV positive, I want our youth to see that you can still become the person that you want to become, that you can be successful, that you can find community, that you can find love, that you can find your purpose. So being in that safe space where you can find others like you, that you can have those conversations with, and role models is important. The other things that we provide are HIV testing, STD testing, linkage to care so that you can stay healthy. We provide access to housing and linkage to housing so that you have a home to go to. And we provide access to mental health so that if you are trying to overcome trauma and you have, or you're experiencing bullying, you have somebody that you can talk to that can help you overcome those scars that you're trying to overcome.
Yeah. It's also a place where you can kind of grab a snack or a drink and just hang out. It's a space that allows for just in and out.
Exactly.
Visitors.
It's a safe space where you can just come and there's no agenda. You just kind of want to be somewhere where you can just be yourself, and that's so important.
You mentioned housing. Can you explain why that is of particular, n- you know, um, need, I guess, in the community that we're talking about of young people?
Yeah. So housing is so critical because if you don't have a place to rest, it's a basic need. And so if you don't have a place, if you don't have a home, if you don't have a place to go to,
Sure, but like, why is that a challenge in some ways for this community of young people?
it's a challenge because sometimes a young person isn't fully accepted in their home, and so a parent may throw their child out simply for being LGBTQIA plus, and so there's a higher rate of homelessness, home insecurity for our LGBTQIA plus so young people.
What resources does Jasmine, if any, offer for families or allies of, young people who are either gay or perhaps identifying on a, continuum gender wise?
Yeah, we do have linkage to care as well. We are part of a Create grant, and part of that is making sure that not only there are LGBTQIA plus young people have access to mental health, but also the family, parents, and siblings of those LGBTQIA plus young people, because they have their own challenges, right? So they maybe bully themselves because they have a queer child or they have a queer sibling. And so the Create program, what that does is create access not only for our young people, but for their support system.
How do you characterize what's happening culturally? I mean, if you watched the Grammys the other night, there were multiple appeals and statements in support of the gay community. There were a number of strong stances defending people who identify as LGBT, and at the same time, there is a very heated discussion in places, particularly here in Florida, about special rights or transgender athletes. A lot of very fiery rhetoric around those issues.
Well, and I think that's why it's so important that JASMYN exists here locally, because it's good for a young person to hear that there are advocates for them. But when you're hearing those messages from somebody that's in Los Angeles, that is a national star, it doesn't feel so close to home. I mean, it feels like you don't have any community here, and that's why JASMYN is so important, because I want young people to know that they have the support, that they have the leadership, that they have adults that are here to support them in who they are, so that they know that they are worthy and that they can continue to grow as a person.
If you're just joining us, I'm talking to Francisco Castro. He is the new CEO of JASMYN. And if you'd like to join our conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You are not originally from Florida. I believe you've kind of lived in Boston for a number of years. You lived in Ohio. You did work in Miami, but I'm curious what kind of conversations you have with people that you know, colleagues or friends, when you tell them, I'm moving to Jacksonville.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Ohio, and I after college, I felt that I needed to be in a place that was more affirming for myself, and landed in Miami. And I actually started my professional career here in Jacksonville. I participated in a management training program with a bank called Barnett Bank. And part of that experience was to come to Jacksonville for 5 months. And then from there, we went to our respective markets. So I went to South Florida.
And when was that roughly, when you were here?
That was back in 1993.
Okay.
So quite a little bit of time has passed, but I just feel that Jacksonville has always been, for me, the start of my career, and it feels like it's full circle coming back to Jacksonville. And what people say is generally, why am I coming back to Florida after being in a place like Boston that's affirming, and you have a governor that is openly lesbian, and people and legislators that are supportive of the trans community and affirming care. And the answer is really because I feel that I need to come back and be that advocate, that voice for our young people that don't have that voice.
We do know, anecdotally, but also there are some figures showing there's something of an exodus of the gay community from Florida. I certainly know a number of people that have relocated and many more that have talked about it.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people?
I believe that that's their personal decision, but I feel that if you're really looking to be part of a community, you need to stay, and you need to have those difficult conversations with your neighbors. You need to hold your leadership accountable. You need to be present. And just like it was back in the 1990s when I came out as an openly gay man, if they don't know you, it's easy to say that you're a general population, and they can be against you. But if you are a face, if you are known to your neighbor, you are known to your employer, then it's harder to be against somebody, because now it's real, it's tangible. And so I think that by staying here in the community and fighting for our young people and fighting for our rights, it's really important.
And in terms of advising young people, in that same vein, I mean, certainly they're less mobile. They really don't have a choice very often whether to stay or to go.
Right.
But sometimes it can feel like a safety issue as opposed to just a healthy conversation with your neighbor.
Yeah, and that's kind of, again, why JASMYN is so important, because our young people don't have that type of freedom. And so it's important to find your community. It's important to find those safe spaces that you can come to, even if it's for an hour or if it's for a day a week, to be able to have that type of time where you can be yourself. It's something, and it's something that I didn't have when I was a kid. I always felt that I could never be who I was. I didn't come out until I was in college, where I had the space to be who I was, and I had some independence. It was when I came out. And so now that people are coming out at a younger age, it's great if they have a supportive family and they have that support group. But if you don't, places like JASMYN do exist.
I saw on your LinkedIn, you talk about having firsthand knowledge of some of the struggles of LGBTQIA youth. And you listed mental health and sexual health and physical violence and homelessness. Are those things that you personally, are you comfortable talking about that? Is that something that you have?
Sure. I think part of being open about my own experience helps reduce the stigma. And so that's why I'm very open about being HIV positive. I've been HIV positive since the year 2000. And I feel that if I can show who I am and that I'm still here, I take my medications in the morning with coffee and then I go to work. That reduces the stigma. Mental health, I think, growing up in a place where I felt like I was in two worlds and didn't fit in either one. When I'd go home, I was from a community that was Mexican-American family. I couldn't be gay. When I was at school, I was in a school that was 99.9% Caucasian. I was visibly different. And so I just never felt like I belonged anywhere. So the isolation of that, I identify with that. I know what it's like.
Yeah. So in the next 30 seconds or so, any plans in the immediate future that we can expect from JASMYN? Any changes?
Yeah, the biggest changes are, one, we have a campus that's 3 beautiful buildings that we have repurposed to create safe spaces, to offer clinical support, clinical services. But we're in phase 4, our final phase, to create our outdoor campus. So we want to have that completed this year. It's still in approval process, and so we should have the ability to move forward with that in June. Bringing back more of our programmatic services, whether on campus or off campus. With the disappearance of safe spaces, we just need to make sure that our young people have spaces to go to. And the other is to really expand our access to mental health.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, Francisco Castro, the new CEO of JASMYN. Thanks for being here. I'm sure we'll hear from you again soon.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Coming up next, spoiling for a fight for a good cause.
Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com. Mayo Clinic, working to treat the untreatable by developing personalized cancer vaccines that stimulate the immune system to better treat the disease and help prevent it from recurring. More at mayoclinic.org/Florida.
On the next Fresh Air, writer and dominatrix Brittany Newell joins us to talk about her new novel, Softcore. It explores the underworld of San.
Sometimes estranged parents go to court to force their children to learn to love them. It's called reunification therapy.
It isn't okay for somebody to continuously hurt you mentally, physically, emotionally, and then you forgive them. That is not okay. And we should not be training kids to think that way.
Do estranged parents have the legal right to be loved by their children? That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
The U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, is responsible for billions of dollars of assistance to countries around the world. It's the world's largest single donor of aid and a fraction of 1% of the federal budget. Now the Trump administration and Elon Musk have frozen the agency's operations. Next time on 1A, the shuttering of USAID, what it means for the world's neediest, and U.S. foreign policy.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, St. Johns County first responders are fighting the good fight, literally. Here to tell us about the upcoming boxing fundraiser is St. Johns County Sheriff Robert Hardwick. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, and thanks for having us on this morning.
Thanks for being here, Sheriff. We're also joined by his wife, Kendall Hardwick, who is the Health Services Coordinator at St. Johns County Schools and coordinator for the Diamond of Dreams Playground Initiative. Good morning,
Yes.
Kendall.
Good morning. Thank you.
So, Kendall, first of all, tell us about the Diamond of Dreams. What is that playground? What is it envisioned as?
So it's not just a playground. So the Diamond of Dreams is an all-inclusive baseball field, multi-purpose field, and playground. It's a sports complex and a playground together for the special needs community. So children with intellectual or physical disabilities have a place to play, a safe place to come out and play on an organized sports team, but also on a playground that's designed for their needs.
I think we have a rendering up on our screen right now if you're watching the live stream that sort of shows, but for people who aren't able to see, or just a better description of how this will be different from an ordinary diamond playground.
Absolutely, yes. So the baseball field itself is specially carpeted, so wheelchairs can easily roll across the field in all areas of the field. And we say multi-purpose field because we don't want to limit it to just baseball. So we're thinking that there will be other areas that we can explore, maybe kickball events and stuff like that as well. But also the playground will have a special flooring as well, so that the wheelchairs can go easily across the playground as well.
And is it the kind of thing where there's swing sets designed for people who may be either in a wheelchair or not able to climb onto a regular swing?
Yes,
Yeah.
all of the above, yes.
Sheriff, this is going to be partially funded by this event that you are emceeing coming up at the St. Augustine Amphitheater. It's a fight night.
It is. So super exciting, Kendall, this is a vision of hers that started with her, of course, her mother before she passed away from cancer in 2004. And we've just simply a perfect partnership, perfect storm, meaning that we wanted to do something local, of course. Guns and Hoses is a big deal, of course, up here in Duval County. We wanted to bring something a little bit closer to home with a partnership with our brothers and sisters, of course, that work with St. Johns County Fire and Rescue and St. Augustine City Fire. So what a great partnership. We teamed up, of course, with Gabe Pellissier and Aubrey and Carl from the AMP. And the AMP is giving all their proceeds back to Kendall and her time in a dream. So once everything is, of course, the cleaning and all the good stuff, the costs are actually taken out. It's all going back. So on February 13th, the bell will ring at 6 o'clock. We'll open up with 3 bouts from our Police Athletic League. Kids, basically, we have about 75 to 80 kids in our Police Athletic League boxing league. They will box first with 3 bouts. We had 4, but a young girl broke her foot unexpectedly, so we have 4 bouts now. And then we'll go right into 12 bouts of adults. So we thought we'd do something different, so we got sanctioned. So we're actually sanctioned through the state of Florida. So when all of our boxers are done, which are 30 in total, they'll have their first semi-professional or amateur, record. So super exciting.
You mentioned Guns and Hoses. That's the event in Jacksonville between the firefighters and the police. I'm curious, why is that a good fundraising tool? Is there this sort of natural rivalry between first responders?
Yeah, there always has been. It's funny. A firefighter the other day said to me, it's like, Sheriff, he said, the reason why we're actually doing this is because we can legally punch a cop, but just some good fun. Fire and rescue, of course.
Not just anybody can sign up for this.
Not everybody
right?
can. No, of course not. And, so it's actually it's camaraderie building, of course. Everybody sees us together. We in St. Johns County are blessed. We have a great relationship with our fire and rescue brothers and sisters. And just what better way to show that partnership relationship and show that community that we stand strong together. And it's powerful for us. But it also lets us kind of let our hair down, per se, and then show the talents of our men and women that we're not just firefighters, we're not just paramedics, we're not just police officers. We're talented in other ways. And half our bouts are female fighters, which is pretty impressive. And our girls are they're going to put on a show. We're super excited about it.
Some of these are youth bouts. The Police Athletic League, one of the things that they offer is, these boxing clubs. There are some protections, though, in place. I mean, obviously, there's concerns increasing in every sport now about head injuries and concussions. What measures are in place to make sure that the kids or, your employees that are working are not going to be coming away with any kind of damage?
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why we actually went the sanction route down there, because the state is very strict, of course, on the sanctioning. So people went through physicals, eye exams. If they were over, I believe it was 40, had to go through a CAT scan of their brain. There will be doctors on site. We'll have 2 doctors and PAs on site that will get so the night before the fight, which is the 12th, they'll actually have a full physical by doctors. And then the night of the fight, they'll do a pre-physical and a post-physical of the fight. And then we'll monitor them, too, as well. So a lot of training went into this. On the safety side of the house. And then also, too, we're following the state regulations on basically weight. So they're within 8 pounds. So we're not going to have any of those, fights that are just totally off on weight and height and age and experience. So super excited.
Kendall, this is February 13th at the AMP. Doors open at 5. How can people get tickets? How much are they?
I am actually going to defer that to Rob
so the tickets are $15 to $20. They're very inexpensive. And then, of course, Kendall can share with you where but everything's through the AMP of St. Johns County. Or, of course, she has the Kendall has her Diamond to Dreams at .org as well.
All right. Well, it is so nice to see you, Sheriff Hardwick, Kendall Hardwick. Thank you so much for being
here
this
man.
morning.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And thank you for listening. It's our show. You can turn in tomorrow. We're going to be talking to our panel of journalists. I'm actually going to be subbed out by my...
Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or BaptistJax.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
The Jacksonville Music Experience presents indie rock band Shannon and the Clams, performing live on the WJCT soundstage on Saturday, April 12th at 7 p.m. Tickets and more information at jacksmusic.org/JME events.